live on your tablet, phone, and the KUTV app. This is 2 News Live.
Thanks for joining us on 2 News Live. I'm Brian Schnee. It is Monday, July 10th. We're going in depth tonight on the potential for more wildfires here in the state of Utah. We have some team coverage on it with Ariel Harrison and Emma Riley looking at that. We're also taking a look at incidents that are taking place right now as we are on here on 2 News Live. A couple different wildfires popping up today throughout the state. Before we get there, though, let's take a look at what is making headlines tonight. On our website, KUTV.com, Salt Lake City Police looking for a suspect involved in a deadly hit and run. Officers say the driver hit and killed a 59-year-old who was riding a bicycle near Indiana Avenue and Redwood Road yesterday morning. Also in our headlines tonight, the Alpine School District Board of Education holding a meeting tomorrow to discuss the potential closure of 3 elementary schools. District leaders say the schools are underused and in disrepair. UDOT crews are working on repaving parts of State Road 224. This is going to cause some traffic delays along Guardsman Pass and up Big Cottonwood Canyon. Traffic will be down to 1 lane in parts of Summit and Wasatch County. So if you're going for that leisurely drive up and over the pass, you might get some delays. The flood emergency in Salt Lake County now over. Salt Lake County Mayor Jenny Wilson says cities were able to manage runoff from our record-setting winter with some improved infrastructure, early planning, and some advanced technology on their end. As we go in depth tonight, you can always get in touch with us throughout the show. You can use the hashtag 2NewsLive to join the conversation. You can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. I don't even know if you can hashtag on Threads these days. I haven't figured it out. Can you do it? Nope, can't hashtag on Threads, Chase says. So just send us a message there, tag us. Hopefully we'll get back to you. Let's go in depth tonight. We're now going beyond the peak of that spring runoff and entering into this hot, dry period that really has gotten going here in the last few weeks or so. Salt Lake County today saying it managed 200% of normal snowpack. Now, much of the growth from all of that water is drying out. Ariel Harrison joining us live. Ariel, what is the county doing to prepare for fire season? Have they moved on?
Well, yeah, we attended this flood, the ending of the emergency flooding announcement today, and we asked Mayor Wilson, hey, now that the focus is shifting from flooding to fires, what's happening? And she talked about how they're extremely aware of all of the growth we've seen from the runoff, leading to all that growth with the brush, the trees. And she talked about how right now they're really working to get the message out what homeowners can be doing. And that's to ensure that, everything around your home, if you have branches that are up against your house or even brush that's growing, to make sure you're clearing those spaces. And that's what firefighters call a defensible space. If you live in some of those areas or have a lot of your property sits on you have a large amount of land on your property where you're making sure the brush is clear, the trees are clear, so there is a defensible space. If there is a fire to rip down the mountain, you live up in the foothills or near the mountain, that they can get in and then have that defensible space to work with if a fire should spark. That was one of the things that they mentioned, but definitely on the radar now that flood or peak runoff, we're beyond that at this point.
Ariel, you make a good point. Really, a lot of it is on you, the homeowner, to take care of your property. So if something does happen, you're not really in harm's way and your property and your structures are not. But what else were they talking about today when it came to how things went with the winter runoff? There was so much conversation. We were talking about it every single day. Communities were getting ramped up and ready. The sandbags were out in almost every neighborhood we were in. I know you were out covering a ton of that, but were they happy? Were they pleased with how things went?
Yeah, they talked about how our infrastructure and how a lot of that and how we got lucky with the weather kind of, playing fair with it melting gradually instead of all at once. They talked about how those were obviously key pieces, but a lot of the preparedness that went into it and how people were so diligent. They're hoping that that translates now into fire season. Another thing that she talked about was just being aware with fireworks, being fire smart, not shooting fireworks off where you shouldn't be, especially with the upcoming 24th of July holiday. She said we fared well through the 4th, not seeing any major things, although I acknowledge that there are fires going on now. But she said she is concerned about the 24th of July and how dry we are. But overall, with our flood season, we got really lucky when it came to weather, and the county did really feel like they prepared, and are glad that that's now in the rearview mirror, looking ahead to the next season already, which they're starting to dredge those different catch basins and retention or detention where they hold the water to make sure that they're big enough and prepared for already the next season, if you can believe that, when we start to see runoff again.
One to the next to the next. Ariel staying on top of it for us, so as always, we appreciate you. Fire crews working on yet another wildfire tonight, this one near the San Pete Emery County line and some pretty remote terrain. We've got these photos just recently into our newsroom. Fire burning on the south side of Farron Mountain near Flagstaff Peak. This is in the Manti-La Salle National Forest. Crews were alerted of this fire, at least from our check, shortly after 1:30 today. Some of this information coming from the Emery County Sheriff's Office, where they estimate about 10 to 20 acres in size. Causes unknown. I have reached out and been in contact with the U.S. Forest Service to see if there are any enclosures in this area. It's a great spot for hiking, for camping. There's some cool mountain lakes up there, so we'll be sure to pass along any of that information so it doesn't mess with those summer getaway plans out into the mountains. But this is what it looks like in our mountains right now. It's funny, we were talking about a pretty quiet start to our fire season, and guess what? It can happen like that, and a lot of it has to do with that temperature, the humidity, and the winds we get in the afternoon.
Yeah, all those ingredients for fire danger, and now we're starting to see more of that hot pattern continue, and it's really beginning to dry things out. The hotter the temperature, usually the lower the humidity, and that's why we have drier fuel. However, I want to put it in perspective. Yesterday we hit 100 degrees, only 2 days so far at or above 100 degrees. Of course, we still have July, August, and even September to see triple-digit temperatures. On average, at least the last 30 years, our normal is 8 days compared to last year, record-breaking year with 34 days at or above 100
And all
degrees.
that said and done, it wasn't probably our worst fire year per se.
Right.
There were some large incidents, but really even 2021 had more catastrophic or potentially catastrophic incidents. So it doesn't always correlate, but man, was it hot last year.
It was. And who knows, maybe, we got the word out. Folks had it on their mind. It's dry, it's hot. Let's all be safe and smart. Same thing for this year. Let's just not do anything dumb, right?
Yep, good news.
Let's get to the forecast. Here's what you need to know. We've been tracking some gusty winds, some hot temperatures today. So far, 97 has been the high here in Salt Lake City. A little bit hotter, of course, down in southern Utah with those triple-digit temperatures, but not too hot. 100 in St. George, hey, that's pretty normal, right? 92 in Vernal, 90 in Price, lots of low 90s throughout central Utah. Mention those winds. It's been kind of a windy day, especially towards Cedar City. Winds gusting close to 40 miles per hour. Generally, the rest of the state, 15 to 30 miles per hour. So it's going to stay gusty for a couple more hours, but those winds are going to be relaxing later tonight, but then picking back up for tomorrow. I think maybe by Wednesday, we'll have some lighter winds. And speaking of the next few days, giving you the green light to get your car washed. We've had some of these spotty showers and storms the past couple weeks. However, for this week, it looks very quiet. So your car wash is going to last several days. Those temperatures also staying hot in the upper 90s. And even hotter down in southern Utah. Here we go. Likely going to be the hottest weather of the year so far. Easily, I think. Friday, 110. In St. George, 112 on Saturday, Sunday, 113. So we got some extreme heat moving in. So make sure your AC is working properly. Find a pool, but wear your sunscreen and stay hydrated. You can thank this ridge of high pressure. Right now, it's kind of hanging out to our southeast a little bit. Eventually, by the weekend, though, it might be moving right on top of Utah and actually strengthening. You'll see a little bit of rain out in Colorado and New Mexico. Clockwise rotation, so we might see some of that moisture moving to southern Utah by tomorrow. So we've added a slight chance for a pop-up thunderstorm to southeastern Utah. You'll notice, though, by Tuesday morning, 8 a.m., it is clear across the entire state. And then some of these pop-up thunderstorms are possible south of I-70 and well east of I-15. So Capitol Reef towards Moab. That's where we could see a shower or two in the afternoon and early evening hours. But it's not going to be very widespread. It's still hot in Moab at 103, Page 99, St. George 104, and then here in central and northern Utah, temperatures again mid-90s, maybe some upper 90s here in Salt Lake City. A little bit cooler though in the mountains, of course, 80s towards Park City and Evanston if you want to beat the heat. 104 in St. George is your coolest day on the 7-day. Here we go, 106 Wednesday, less wind on Thursday, Friday 110, generally 110 to 115 in the lower valleys of Washington County through the weekend, so it's dangerously hot. Salt Lake, we're in the upper 90s through Thursday. Slight dip Friday, Saturday into the mid-90s, which is closer to average. Overnight lows in the upper 60s and low 70s. And then here we go for northern Utah. Could be the hottest weather of the year so far. Sunday 101, and Monday we are at 102 degrees. So we got some toasty weather in the forecast. But for this week, hot but not too hot.
Is this where the New Englander in me goes, it's just dry heat though?
Sure.
We can deal with it.
We can deal with mid and upper 90s.
Yeah, it
Again,
feels nice,
last
actually.
year,
I mean, it's
34 days.
This is the time of year where you're outside working on the tan there as you're taking care of the yard, right?
Yep, in
and
the
then,
morning.
Honestly, if it was this every day, I'd be hiding from the outdoors for a little bit.
Yeah.
So this is pretty refreshing.
Yeah, not too bad.
All right. Thank you, Chase. Remember to download our 2 News weather app to know about changes in your neighborhood. You can, of course, get updated forecasts, some live radar right on your phone. The app is free to download. You got me thinking about last year. Man, was it hot a couple days in a row. Some really crazy stretches of just triple digits over and over and over. How would you like to be sitting in this right now? I hope you're not. I-15 southbound. Looks like the Linden area, so Tooele County. Oy. You got to leave earlier or later, guys. Know the tricks by now. It's a little bit slow go there in Tooele County tonight. But of course, hoping things fizzle out by about 6:15, 6:30 once things clear up. Continuing our team coverage on the topic of wildfires, some other parts of Utah are seeing more wildfires, some of them small, which is nice right now. Emma Riley joining us live in Tooele County. Emma, what have fire crews out there told you?
Well, this year is looking a little different than last year because last year in Tooele County, they were fighting a 4,000-acre wildfire that forced campers to evacuate and threatened a couple buildings. And so this year, he said it's not the same, but it still is very busy. I spoke with Tooele Fire District PIO, and he told me that they're responding to 2 to 3 calls a weekend. And he says people often think that, if a fire happens in their backyard, they can handle it, but they are advising people not to target shoot right now. He said that's a big issue, is people are target shooting, and that's what's causing these little fires to pop up. He also said that it's smart to cut away your vegetation in your backyard, kind of get rid of those limbs and things that could catch on fire. And then he also warned against, dragging chains and throwing cigarettes out of the window. And if you are driving, not to pull over dry grass if your car is overheating. But yeah, he told me they've responded to around 20 fires already. And he says it's going to be a very busy season. Even though it was a wet winter, he wants everyone to know that it still is just as dangerous because the grasses are higher. So, they still have a fire threat out there, and they're warning people to make sure that they don't do anything that could cause a fire.
Emma Riley joining us live tonight. Emma, we were just looking at some video of the Jacob City fire from last year. I mean, really a remarkable fire because it involves some difficult terrain. Residents in that area really need to be on the lookout for their own properties. Again, this was a human-caused fire too. So, Emma, what are people that dealt with this? I know you spoke with someone today who had to basically pack up in a moment's notice and get out. How are they feeling about a year to the day since this fire sparked?
Yeah, Brian Herman, the camper that you spoke with last year, he was one that was evacuated, and they had only minutes to get out. So it was a very scary situation. He said he hasn't stopped camping, but that experience does live in the back of his mind, and he says they're prepared for things to change drastically in a moment's notice. But it was a human-caused fire. A generator exploded, and so that's one thing that the Tooele Fire District PIO told me was that these fires are preventable, and most of the time they're almost always human caused. So people need to make sure they're not doing anything that could cause a fire.
Emma Riley live for us tonight. Emma, thank you very much. Of course, a lot of the same things. Be mindful, right, of what you're doing in the outdoors, especially as we've been witnessing today with different fires sparking throughout the state. So an increase in fires being started along our roads as of late. These are all considered human-caused fires for the most part. These fires can spark from a number of different reasons. Chains, a crash. For example, today, a rollover crash sparking a wildfire that burned in southeastern Utah along I-70 near the Utah-Colorado border. The fire then just took off. This area has had red flag warnings for prime fire conditions over the last few weeks. It's also an area that's dried out quicker than other parts of the state.
Recently, we've seen a slight uptick this last week. The fields alongside the roads are starting to dry out, especially in southern Utah. Reported, we have around 20 motor vehicle starts. That number will likely go up because many of those are probably still under investigation. 6 ways vehicles start wildfires are when your brakes are worn out, when you get that metal-to-metal contact, that can start a spark. If you're dragging metal, such as chains, trailer chains, or any other thing dragging, that can also cause a spark. So you want to make sure your chains, and if you're towing recreational vehicles, they're all tied up and not dragging on the ground. The exhaust systems and OHVs and dirt bikes, you must have your spark arresters. Catalytic converters can also ignite the fields alongside the road. Tire pressure, that's a big one as well. So if your tires are flat or underinflated, you're gonna want to keep those maintained. Good tread on your tires to avoid having those spark and make contact with the road and cause roadside wildfires. And if you have a hot engine as well, don't park on dry grass, and those hot components under your vehicle can ignite the grasses and weeds and shrubs under your car. So there's 6 main ways right there that cars can start wildfires. When you're traveling, I would make sure you're prepared. I always carry a fire extinguisher and a shovel in my vehicle, as well as extra water. So in case there is a fire ignited, just be sure to call 911 as soon as possible and get our responses and our resources en route.
With high temperatures and dry conditions, wildfire season is in full swing. We'll be sure to stay on top of fires as they spark on air, online, KUTV.com, as well as the 2 News mobile app. That'll do it for us here today on 2 News Live. Chase, definitely the concern for fires right now. It had changed just so quickly, season by season. As Ariel mentioned, on to the next, right? We had really just been talking about flooding and record snowpack and all these things that got you very excited for a few months.
But you know what? Everything is just so overgrown right now. I mean, everything's still pretty green, really above 8,000 feet. So not the biggest concern right now for those big fires up towards the peaks, but at least here in the lower valleys, everything you probably noticed, I noticed really within about a week, went to Yellowstone for the 4th of July, came back, and my lawn is now brown. So
the fast moving grass fires typically will happen around some infrastructure and homes too. So there's that concern around your property. Some really good messaging today. If you missed any of it, you can always watch it back on YouTube, on Facebook, and be sure to join us tomorrow. We're back here for another edition of 2 News Live. Have a great rest of your Monday. Good night.